Good evening. Thank you all for joining us in this virtual meeting format. We will continue a public hearing to hear testimony on the matter of adopting amendments to the Springfield Development Code. We are conducting this meeting jointly with the Lane County Planning Commission, as the proposed development code amendments will be adopted by both jurisdictions. To provide some context, the planning commissions are not the final decision makers on this matter. After the planning commissions have reviewed the proposed amendments and other relevant material provided by staff, including testimony from the public, each planning commission will make a recommendation to its own elected officials, those being the Lane County Board of Commissioners and the Springfield City Council. Then City Council and the Board of Commissioners will respectively consider their planning commission's recommendation and will hold their own joint public hearing before making their final decisions on the proposed amendments. Before we reopen the public hearing, I want to let the public know a bit about the planning commissions and our role. We are unpaid volunteers appointed by the Springfield City Council and Lane County Board of Commissioners, respectively. As planning commissioners, we're committed to balancing all of the community's needs and making the best recommendations we possibly can based on city and county policies, as well as Oregon laws, for us and for future generations. I want to thank everyone for their patience and flexibility as we work within this virtual meeting format. As always, feel free to contact staff if there is testimony you are not able to provide or wish to provide in a different manner. I would like to ask members of the audience who are joining us by phone or online to please keep yourselves on mute and your camera off until you are called to provide public testimony. If you would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature on Zoom or press *9 if joining by phone. If you are attending in person, please fill out a request to speak card and present it to the Planning Commission assistant. When called upon to speak, please state your name and mailing address. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Now I'll ask the Springfield Planning Commissioners to please disclose any potential conflicts of interest. So personally, I have 2 potential conflicts of interest. One in that I own real property in the city of Springfield. And the second is that I work for a real estate developer, Homes for Good Housing Authority, that operates throughout Lane County as well as specifically in Springfield. All right, Commissioner Buck.
Thank you. I have 2 potential conflicts of interest. One, that I own real property in Springfield, and 2, that I am an insurance agent who writes business in the area.
Thank you. Commissioner Schmunk?
No bias or undisclosed conflicts.
All right. And Commissioner Thompson?
No bias or prior knowledge. I am a property owner in the city of Springfield, so that could be one potential conflict of interest. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't see Commissioner Stout, and Commissioner Rhodes Dye has an excused absence. All right, and then I'll leave it up to the Lane County Chair.
Okay, are there any Lane County Planning Commissioners that have an actual or potential conflict of interest? And I will start by disclosing a potential conflict of interest of my own, that I work for Jerry's Home Improvement located in the city of Springfield. Seeing none, I will pass the mic back to you.
Excellent, thank you. And I didn't, before we go any further in the script, I did not see a place in the script to check in or to declare our presence in the meeting. Should we declare our presence before we get any further in the agenda?
I believe that having just declared all of your conflicts of interest or not is sufficient, unless Lane County wants to do a roll call yourselves, since you didn't call on each person.
Since we didn't call individually, I'll go ahead and call roll call. I'm going to start with Eliza Kaczynski, although I believe that Chair Kaczynski is not present tonight. Is that correct? Hearing nothing, Vice Chair Jeff Choder am here. Commissioner Digno.
Here. And by the way, I don't know why, but my video doesn't seem to be working, so I'm probably just going to have to do audio.
Thank you. Commissioner Hadley.
Here.
Commissioner Kaler.
Here.
Commissioner Lay.
Here.
Commissioner Peacock. Commissioner Snyder.
I'm here.
And Commissioner Whittle.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. As a reminder, testimony presented at this public hearing should be directed toward the applicable approval criteria or other criteria that the speaker believes apply to the decision. In general, the approval criteria require that any plan amendments must be consistent with the applicable statewide planning goals, the Metro Plan, and Springfield Comprehensive Plan. Staff have prepared findings to demonstrate that is the case with the proposed amendments, which are included in the materials for this meeting. For Springfield, the applicable criteria are Springfield Development Code, Section 5.6.115 and 5.14.135, and statewide planning goals / Oregon administrative rules.
For Lane County, the applicable approval codes are Lane Code Chapters 10.600-15, applicable land use regulations, 12.100.050, method of adoption and amendment, and statewide planning goals and Oregon administrative rules.
Thank you. And with that, I am now reopening the public hearing for the Springfield Planning Commission, and I invite Chair Choate to reopen the public hearing for Lane County.
And the Lane County Planning Commission public hearing is now reopened.
Excellent. So before we begin receiving public testimony, we will have a brief presentation from staff to reintroduce the project and to summarize the staff report. I'd like to introduce Springfield Senior Planner Haley Campbell to begin the presentation. Haley, take it away.
Thank you, Chair Salazar. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Good, thank you. So I'm just going to click play on a pre-recorded hearing presentation. You should have seen most of this from the previous hearing, but I'm just going to reintroduce it, and please hold on all questions until the end, and mute yourself if you haven't already. Sorry, just a little bit of technical difficulties. Just bear with me for 1 second.
Oh, yeah, looks good.
Just trying to make sure you guys have the right the right video. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to switch these. Sorry. Okay. I'm so sorry. Okay. I'm just going to have to read what's on the slides. I apologize. This is pre-recorded, and this is sometimes why we have these issues in the conference room. That's why I'm currently not in there. So bear with me. I'm just going to, we're going to roll with it. So 1 second. Can everybody see my screen though? No. Okay. I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, everybody should be able to see my screen, correct?
Yes, we do.
Okay, I apologize. Technical difficulties. So thank you for attending this Planning Commission hearing to discuss the stormwater post-construction requirements. My name is Haley Campbell. I'm a senior planner here with the City of Springfield and the project manager for this amendment. I won't be starting the presentation, but you'll be hearing from me briefly about the project, and we'll go from here. So stormwater is an important part of the community's effort to improve water quality, protect fish habitat, and protect properties from flooding. Because stormwater runoff from urban areas is one of the main sources of water pollution and alteration of hydrology, it is regulated under the Federal Clean Water Act in Oregon. The Department of Environmental Quality, or DEQ, implements the requirements within the Clean Water Act on behalf of the Environmental Protection Agency. This MS4 permit requirements are the primary mechanism for ensuring our water bodies are swimmable and fishable. These permit requirements cover public education and outreach, elimination of illegal discharges to the stormwater system, prevention erosion at construction sites, and more. Directing runoff from urban areas to post-construction site runoff controls, such as rain gardens and swales, is one of the most effective ways to recreate natural hydrology and remove pollutants from stormwater runoff. The City of Springfield is mandated by its MS4 permit to require post-construction stormwater controls at public and private developments. This includes building new impervious surface and the replacement of old impervious surface. As discussed earlier, the MS4 permit requires the city to reduce discharges of pollutants and address stormwater runoff from new development and redevelopment project sites in its coverage area. There are 7 main components of the permit. The first is that we must implement all program elements by February 2024. The second is that we must adopt through ordinance or other regulatory mechanism a size requirement for projects sites that discharge stormwater to the MS4 and create or replace 5,000 square feet or more of impervious surface area, or for development projects that disturb 1 or more acres of land. Next, we must identify, minimize, or eliminate barriers to techniques intended to minimize impervious surfaces. This includes the installation of low-impact development or vegetated stormwater controls. The fourth creates a numeric stormwater retention requirement to minimize offsite discharge of precipitation. Springfield has implemented a volume-based standard where you must retain the first 1.4 inches of rainfall from a storm event. For projects that are unable to meet that standard, they must remove at least 80% of total suspended solids before they discharge to the public system. Finally, staff must continue to review and approve plans for consistency with the ordinance and development code, ensure that all installed stormwater controls are operated and maintained to meet site performance standards, and provide education and outreach to the general public about the impact of stormwater runoff on water bodies to mitigate those impacts. This request is an amendment to the Development Code and a Type 4 application under Springfield Development Code 5.1.600. Amendments include various sections that involve the use of stormwater, specifically chapters 3, 4, 5, 6, and the creation of appendices B through H. This includes section 4.3.110 for stormwater management and the addition of specific words and terms that define stormwater treatment and facilities. Because this is a Type 4 amendment, it also requires review and recommendation by the Springfield Planning Commission and the Lane County Planning Commission due to the intergovernmental agreement. Through this IGA, Springfield administers the permit requirements within the UGB. Given the nature of the code amendments, the land use regulations are subject to this IGA. The approval criteria for this proposal are contained in Springfield Development Code 5.6.115, which covers amendments to refinement plans, plan districts, and the development code. They are shown on the screen and require conformance with the Metro Plan, applicable state statutes, and applicable statewide planning goals and administrative rules. The findings for these approval criteria can be found in the staff report. Since the August 1st joint work session and public hearing, staff received 1 public comment from Mike Quavela, which includes concerns around the disposal of stormwater in a dry well by residents and the use of non-toxic moss control products. The city has some tools and programs that address these concerns that are not currently regulated through the Springfield Development Code. First, Springfield does not allow open dry wells. It must be covered so that the only entrance is the pipe carrying the water. The The most frequently used type of dry well is a soakage trench, which does not have any openings above ground except for the pipe that connects to the roof drains, and typical installation does not have an easy entry point to dispose of liquids. Therefore, frequent use of dry wells for residential use is not a concern at this time. Furthermore, Springfield Development Code 4.370 through 4.372 prohibits illicit discharges into the city stormwater system. This prohibition applies to overuse or misuse of products like moss killer in a residential area if it is posing a threat to the water quality of the city storm system. If there was an open stormwater facility, it also applies to using that facility as a dump or to dispose of items. The Environmental Services Department staff do not take enforcement action when they become aware that someone is discharging substances into a stormwater facility that are not stormwater. Second, the MS4 permit also requires the city to provide education and outreach related to water quality. The Environmental Services Department Stream Team provides information to Springfield residents through their sub-bills several times a year, and with the help of Eugene and Lane County, are actively working on a handout for moss control best practices specifically for Springfield. The handout and future outreach campaign will be based on resources from regional municipalities and the Northwest Center for Alternatives to Pesticides. So what are the next steps? This request is reviewed, as we discussed, as a Type 4 legislative amendment to the Springfield Development Code, which requires review and a recommendation by the Planning Commission and ultimately adoption of ordinance by City Council. Since the stormwater development criteria apply to areas outside the city limits, the city has an intergovernmental agreement with Lane County, and the County Board of Commissioners must also co-adopt the amendments for them to apply outside city limits. The next step is for the Planning Commission to make a recommendation to the City Council, and Board of Commissioners will hold a joint work session and joint hearing on the proposed amendments on November 6, 2023. And that's the end of the thing. Commissioner Salazar.
All right, excellent. So next we'll move on to testimony, and thank you so much, Haley, for that presentation. That was great. And for that quick response to the testimony that came in today online. All right, so next we'll move on to testimony from interested parties. I would like to ask members of the audience who are joining us by phone or online to please keep yourselves on mute until you're called to provide public testimony. If you would like to speak, please use the raise hand feature on Zoom. If joining online, at the bottom of your screen, click on reactions and you will see the raise hand option. If joining by phone, press *9. If you are here in person, please fill out a request to speak card and present it to the Planning Commission assistant. When called upon to speak, please state your name and mailing address, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes. First of all, Sarah, do we have anyone in the in your meeting room who'd like to speak?
Not at this time.
Okay. And Rachel, do we have anyone in the Good Pasture room who'd like to speak?
Nope, I did not have anyone who RSVP'd to give testimony or attend in the Good Pasture room, so I don't have anyone signed up.
All right, thank you, Rachel.
And Commissioner Salazar, sorry to interrupt, Rachel.
Oh, yes.
I didn't give you an opportunity to speak. Would you like to have that opportunity?
Thanks, Haley. Sure, I will just note as a part of the staff report portion of the meeting, that Lane County has reviewed the proposed amendments. Specifically, we've worked with our stormwater team here at Lane County, has reviewed this proposed code amendment and ensured that the proposed code does comply with Lane County's MS4 permit as well. And we do have Lorena Janeski, who is our stormwater permitting specialist. So if any questions arise later in the meeting, specifically about the MS4 permit, she and I are available to answer those questions. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Rachel. And sorry, yeah, again, that I missed your chance to speak earlier. Getting back to public testimony, we'll now move on to people who've joined us by Zoom. Please raise your hand if you would like to provide testimony. Now is your chance to provide that. All right, seeing no raised hands, we'll move on to anyone who's joined us by telephone. Again, you can press *9 if you're joining by phone. And not seeing anyone who's joined by phone. Yeah, thank you to everyone for taking your time this evening to join us in this meeting, even if not providing testimony. So before we close the public hearing, do any of the commissioners have clarifying questions on the facts of this proposal before we close the public hearing? All right, seeing none.
Right, I'm slow.
Oh, yeah. Commissioner Snyder?
There was a public comment mentioned that came in this afternoon. Was the nature of that comment generally in favor of or against this? And is there a place we can read that public comment?
Yes, Commissioner, I apologize. Let me share my screen again and I will bring it back up on the screen. Yes, so you should be able to see it. This was the public comment received today from Mike Quavala. It's mostly just like comments. I'm sorry, I don't have that comment in front of me actually up on the slide. I apologize. It should be in our Springfield Oregon Speaks. I can try to pull it up real quick and read it to you, but it was mostly just questions about the dry well. If that could be an issue in residential zones, discharging to dry wells in particular. And then the other question was about kind of the toxic use of moss treatment products on our developments, and is there an alternative to that? Have we looked into that? Is that something that we could potentially regulate? And that's not something that we necessarily do as part of, or we don't regulate those items under the Springfield Development Code. That was a part of this presentation or providing this public comment information. Thank you, Christina. I didn't have it up in front of me. So this is the public
That was
comment.
Sandy. I was just also going to let you know you should read it if you can't share it.
Okay. So yes, the questions from Mike Quavala is if single family residential should be allowed to dispose of stormwater in a dry well. A convenient dry well open to access will likely be used by residents to dispose of many products that could damage groundwater, oil, pesticides, paint, etc. So in the public comment, we said that is not really an option. We don't have an option for you to discharge into it from a dry well. And then consider a program to encourage use of non-toxic moss control products. Most of the zinc moss killers are toxic to fish and amphibians and do not reliably break down. Sodium percarbonate is a very effective moss killer and destroys pre-emergent moss spores, yet breaks down fairly quickly to completely benign compounds. A treatment is not expensive and lasts for a long time. Thank you, Planning Commissioners, for your service to Springfield residents.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions for staff? All right, I'll just give it another second. And feel free to, if you aren't able to raise your hand virtually, feel free to raise your hand on camera and I can still see you. All right, seeing no other questions, it is now time to determine if we need to continue the hearing or hold the record open for submission of additional information to be considered by the Planning Commissions before our deliberations. Unless there are any objections from Planning Commissioners or staff, the Springfield Planning Commission hearing will be closed. All right, seeing no objections, the Springfield Planning Commission public hearing is now closed.
And are there any objections to the same from the Lane County Planning Commission? Seeing none, the Lane County Planning Commission public hearing is now closed.
Thank you. Are there any objections to closing the record? As a reminder, any information that comes to the Planning Commissions has closed our record. Any information that comes after the Planning Commissions have closed our record will be provided to the elected officials as part of their public hearing process. All right, seeing no objections, the Springfield Planning Commission has closed the record.
And does the Lane County Planning Commission have any objections to closing the record? Again, seeing none, the Lane County Planning Commission record is now closed.
The hearing and record are now closed, and the commissions will now have the opportunity to deliberate as a group. To facilitate the group deliberation, the commissions will begin with their respective motions in favor of approving the proposal. If we are ready to discuss the application, I will entertain a motion from the Springfield Planning Commission.
And before we get there, I want to interject that we would like to include that response to the comment in the staff report. So as you may have seen in the previous staff report, we had a comment that had been submitted for your first hearing with a staff response. We would add the second comment and a staff response that Haley had on her screen. So we would ask that you, as at a minimum, include that as part of your motion.
Okay, so probably best to entertain a motion with the proposed change. And if anyone, I'm not able to see now that there's shared screen up, I'm not able to see as many screens. So if any of the Springfield Planning Commissioners, oh, thank you, Haley. If anyone of the Springfield Planning Commissioners would like to propose a motion, please do just feel free to unmute yourself.
So I'm happy to make a motion. I can't find the script to, so if someone could direct me to that or help me with that.
So you would be recommending approval of the order and recommendation that is in the agenda packet as attachment 1, with the change to include the comment from Michael Quavala and staff's response are shared on the screen. And Haley could share that again to make sure that you're all okay with that staff response.
Okay, can we put that in the form of a motion?
Sure, I will type something into the chat for you here shortly.
Thank you. So this will appear on the screen. Okay, I see. Okay, I move to approve the order and recommendation that's in the agenda packet as attachment 1, with the change to include the public comment and staff responses shared on the screen. And that was an additional comment that was that came in, I guess, just real recently.
Yeah, and can you add in the staff report for that? I didn't put that in the chat.
And the staff, and include the staff report as part of this motion.
Yeah, so that
approval of the staff.
The public comment and staff response would be added to the staff report.
Yeah, I think it's adequate to, and I'm sorry, my Alexa device went off just when I unmuted myself. I think that's sufficient, Sandy. I think including it, I think we've got the gist of it on that motion.
Got it.
Thank you, Christina.
Thank you, everyone. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Excellent. We have a motion and a second. Before we move on to making our vote, we'll hear a motion for Lane County.
How about if I unmute first? I will entertain a motion from Lane County Planning Commission.
Sure. I move that we forward a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners to adopt the proposed amendments as presented in the Lane County Planning Commission memo.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
A second.
So just a question, do you want to include the same addition that we had recommended for Springfield Planning Commission?
I will direct that question to Commissioner Snyder.
I am under the assumption that all of the comments and public comment and our discussion will go to the Board of Commissioners as is, because the motion is forwarding the recommendation to adopt the proposed amendments, and the amendments are not being changed by that public comment and response. I didn't feel it was necessary to include in the motion.
Excellent, thank you.
We have two motions. Are there any discussion on the motions?
This is Commissioner Choate. I do have one suggestion. I saw where the National Coalition to Alternatives to Pesticides was included explicitly in the suggestion to research moss control options. I would recommend that OSU Extension and the National Pesticide Information Center, which happens to be housed at Oregon State University, be potential resources. They are familiar with local issues as well as pesticides in particular.
Thank you, Commissioner. We appreciate that. I will pass that information on to our Environmental Services Department and the communication team who helps the Environmental Services Department with spreading that information when the time comes.
And I would just like to say that, yeah, just really appreciate all the staff work that's been put into this. I think this is a great move, especially to get us on the same page with our neighbors in Eugene, and really promoting an easier path forward for developers that also keep in mind the needs of our local water supply and our waterways. And keeping those healthy and clean. So appreciate the work that you've done to put these recommendations together, and also to respond to those questions and recommendations that have come in. All right, seeing no other discussion, I think we're ready for a roll call vote on the Springfield side.
Chair Salazar?
Aye.
Commissioner Schmuck?
Aye.
Commissioner Buck?
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson?
Aye.
All right, motion carries with 4 in favor, 0 opposed, and 2 absent.
Okay, for Lane County, Commissioner Choate, I vote in favor. Aye. Commissioner Dignam?
Aye.
Commissioner Hadley?
Aye.
Commissioner Kaler?
Aye.
Commissioner Lay?
Aye.
Commissioner Snyder?
Aye.
And Commissioner Whittle?
Aye.
And the motion carries unanimously with 7 out of 9 in attendance.
Excellent, thank you. Next, we'll get a staff update from Mark Rust on the minor code changes. As the hearing for the minor code changes was closed on August 1st, this meeting will be part of the legislative record, but no actions will be taken by the planning commissioners. These amendments were missed during the first draft review, so staff are providing an update for clarification and the opportunity to answer any questions or concerns. I'd like to introduce Planning Manager Mark Rust to provide the update. Mark, take it away.
Good evening, commissioners. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
And Haley, just to check in with her quick, I don't know if she had any introductory statement that she wanted to make to this item prior to me.
No, I didn't. Mark, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. And so tonight, we're just bringing these additional minor code amendments to you for informational purposes. These became aware to us after the public hearing we had with you at your last meeting on the minor code amendments. We've ran these by our city attorney's office and feel that we can proceed with these additional minor code amendments with just a public hearing at the city council and board of county commissioners joint public hearing without the requirement to have it also as a public hearing in front of this joint body. But we did want to make you, both these commissions, aware of these additional minor amendments that we're adding to the packet that we will take to the joint elected officials. The majority of these are, as you'll see in the packet, very minor. For the most part, incorrect citations to code sections that no longer exist or that the code references changed slightly, so we needed to update those code citation numbers. There is one section that is more substantial, however, and that has to do with the setbacks in the commercial or most of the commercial zones, primarily the commercial convenience. But through our last big development code update last year, we are identifying the fact that we left out these setbacks as a oversight. And so we're proposing to add back in the same schedule of setbacks that existed in the code previously. And so if there were any questions about that section or any of the other minor amendments, I'm happy to go into it further. But again, just wanted to make it clear that we're adding these to the packet to move forward with the joint public hearing to the city council and board of county commissioners, and wanted to bring it to your attention tonight.
Thank you, Mark. And Rachel, did you have anything to add to that?
Nope, I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
All right, thanks. All right, well, yeah, thanks for catching those, and to everyone who's involved in finding those and bringing a comprehensive recommendation to our elected bodies when they consider this. All right, do any commissioners from either commission have any clarifying questions on the facts of the proposal before we close this meeting? Again, we're not voting on this. This will just be included in the recommendations to our respective elective bodies. And if you have any troubles with the raise hand feature, feel free to raise your hand on the screen and I can call on you too. All right, seeing none, on behalf of both planning commissions, thanks again, Mark, for that presentation and for those catches. And on behalf of both planning commissions, thank you all for joining us and speaking tonight. The meeting of the Springfield Planning Commission is now adjourned.
And the meeting of the Lane County Planning Commission is now adjourned. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Chair Salazar.